I couldn't agree with you more, but there are certain points that should be brought forth. Number one, in the United States, we have 3,000 utilities. In China, there's effectively one, maybe 3 or 4 smaller ones, but it's state grid. So you're all answering to one master. Mm-hmm. Even in our industry where we're doing infrastructure, state grid is all important to us. Number two, we went to China to manufacture because we're not going to be able to compete on a global basis manufacturing from the United States. So we're building a plant to manufacture our chargers over there, plus we have another joint venture to do the installation. Our plant property was essentially free. Plant, essentially free. Subsidies, essentially ongoing. Financing, export financing, ongoing. Now here in the United States, we're begging for table scraps from the DOE to do matching fund projects, which we're not allowed to make money on, to catch up. And that's why I say we have to be very afraid, because they're not trying to just, China's not trying to just do a renewable proportion. They're building a renewable industry. And this industry is going to be very powerful. And unless we in the United States really wake up and understand that we have to do the same to support this industry, that we need to coalesce the utilities and pull together and come to some uniform agreements on how we're going to support these smaller industries that are out there, we're going to be in trouble. And I love China, lived there for many years, and we're happy working there. But we as a nation have to be very concerned that we have an opportunity right now to grab renewable energy and be a leader. And if we don't do it, 6 years to go from building actually lithium batteries for telephones first to building full-scale cars, it's quite amazing.
In terms of support here from the U.S., you recently received a substantial grant from the Department of Energy. How is that coming into play with some of your development and activities here in the U.S., or how is that coming into?
We received a stimulus grant, and I have to, everybody criticizes me. All the right-wing boys at my country club say, oh, you're just getting Obama dollars. The stimulus dollars really work. We've had to put all our money up first. We didn't receive a check from the government for 6 months into the program, and it was all our funding. We put in 250 new jobs immediately and ramped it up, and we're going to get our money maybe at the tail end, but we're not allowed to make a profit on it. So the stimulus has really, it helps. It gives us a little push forward, but it doesn't build an industry, because when that goes away, there's no other support. There's no state or government support, and you're on your own. And so you have a half-built infrastructure instead of a full-baked proposal. But stimulus, it's a great start.
But it's a contrast of what you're saying in China, where they're welcoming with subsidies and You're paying virtually nothing.
And building an industry, and really focused on helping build an industry.
And one of the things that we're helping people get some of those grants and loans, and here in the U.S., there is an enormous number of hoops. You have to go through a NEPA analysis, National Environmental Policy Act analysis, in order to qualify for a loan. And it's good for our business, but I don't know that it's the best policy for the country to have to put that many hoops to jump through in order to build a biofuels plant, just to get the money. So it's...
I have a slightly different opinion. I think that we are sitting sort of at the start of a very exciting opportunity in the smart grid space in this country. There's a substantial amount of funding from Department of Energy that is being spent. Universities are involved. Universities are all very excited. Our grad students are very excited. I'm getting more grad students applying to my program, my current program, than my prior wireless programs by a factor of about 5x. I think the word energy is exciting to the kids. The word environment is exciting to the kids. They want to do something. I think that, this country, we invented the iPod, and if you look at the iPod, what was it? Was there any one revolutionary component? The answer is probably no. It was a system. And I think that there is a great opportunity if we can encourage our young creative minds to do stuff. I think we can create terrific intellectual property. The resources are being put in place, especially through Department of Energy on the renewable energy side, as well as on the grid side. I think that we can do stuff now. There are a lot of challenges. I'm not saying the challenges aren't there. You guys are the ones who make it work. I don't. I can talk about cool things and create cool things. But I think that if we create cool things then things will start to happen. Now, what happens, I think, when we go overseas, then we need to be a little bit careful about things like IP. I mean, I know lots of companies in India. I've met with the CEO of Tata Group and so forth. And, you know, IP is an issue you have to be careful about in places like India. And so, but there are methods. So you need to know the local laws, local rules, and there's a process by which you can ensure that your IP is protected. So I think that, the other thing, I think that technology is truly global. You know, I mean, I was in Italy, and every second kid I met, they want to own an iPod. And so the point is that from a technological standpoint, I mean, when you look at the electric power grid, we're moving electrons, and now we're moving electrons digitally. The technology can be used anywhere. You have to be aware of things like what voltage, what's the transmission side voltage, is it, you know, 220,000 kV or whatever it is. So you need to know some of those things, but the big companies like the GEs of the world and Siemens of the world, they already know all of these things. But I'm very, very excited about the opportunities and the new technologies that I think university labs like ours, I think, have started to put forth. Some of the students, two of the students I have are developing fantastic wireless technologies that they'll tell you how many, the wireless sensor network will tell you how many people in this room, and it can automatically therefore adjust the lighting wirelessly and the air conditioning wirelessly, depending on how many people in this room. So there's lots of interesting things that can be put into place. And I think that from a regulatory standpoint, all those things, I think, of course, need to happen.
But Rajiv, when I went to the BYD plant and you walk through, and there they're making the iPod, and there they're sole sourcing all of Motorola telephones, as well as making cars, I'm scratching my head and say, these are great American products, but where are the American jobs? And my caution is really coming from the fact that we have this opportunity. It's a big question. Being an entrepreneur, I certainly don't like trade barriers or tariffs or something, but the playing field either has to be leveled through the government or through industry support. If all of the U.S. Utilities decided that they were going to use smart grid manufactured here in the United States, it might have a profound impact on a manufacturing industry here that's slowly dissipating and disappearing. I mean, we have a middle class in this country that's suffering as a result of it. And I just think that we need to take an opportunity that we have here now with leadership in renewables and say, stop, look, let's think about this, not just rush to market and send the market elsewhere. That's my key point.
Taking technology global, as you were saying, is a possibility. How does that translate with environmental compliance and some of the regulatory hurdles that you are seeing? And when you're working with your colleagues, what are some of the things that you initially advise clients setting up?
Well, I think certainly initially they need to be looking ahead and have someone on the ground in the country of interest who knows how to get things done. You're not going to want to send somebody like me over to China and figure out the regulations. I'm very good at reading regulations, but there's usually more in between the lines in a regulation than there are on the paper. And so I think the biggest thing is getting the right resources who know on the ground what the real rules are and how they're enforced, as opposed to what someone might read on a piece of paper. You need to also be aware, of course, that depending on your funding sources, you may be held to even higher standards. If you're a multinational or you're using World Bank money, they all have different requirements that frequently can be even higher than the kinds of requirements that you would see in India or China on its own. So it's really taking that hard look before you're committing to large expenditures.